feel the silence chasing me. Shadows follow me everywhere I go. Danger's near, I can feel it. Say my name, feel that flame. Welcome to the kill zone. There's a silence screaming in the dark. Footsteps echo when I fall apart. Eyes behind me, I can feel the weight. Say my name, feel that flame. Welcome to the kill zone. Danger's near, I can feel it. Say my name, feel that flame. Welcome to the kill zone. Welcome to the kill zone.
All right. That was Raise Hell, Cloud Zero, Killzone. But I'd assume the band's called Witch House, an NCS release which you can find in the description below if you enjoy that kind of music. Who knows? And welcome back to the well, to River Valley Radio. I'm your host, Grant Magic. I'm the Again, I run River Valley Radio. I'm also the Prime Minister of New Strathclyde. You can find the relevant ads on X in the description below. And with me today, I have the very lovely Ellie Penhollow back on the show.
Mirage for having me again.
That's fine. And I also have someone else, Mr. Joe Hunt.
Go through there, and Miraz for having me.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. How are you two this evening?
I'm very splan. I'm glad to be on here again and to get to talk about Cornwall again.
Yeah, that's absolutely fine. Well, it's
Yeah,
nice.
fine, thank you.
Yeah,
Glad to be here.
that's good. It's nice to have you back, Ellie. As always. And so for those of you who watched last time, you may remember Ellie being on the show and talking a little bit about Cornwall. There's maybe a bit more in depth tonight about the particular goings on within Cornwall, at least Cornish politics at the moment. So we will just get stuck right in and so just to go first, why do you guys want to push for Cornish devolution or even independence if you can get it?
Well, evolution or independence a step further. If we look at the status of Cornwall,
Mhm.
Cornwall has always been a nation. It is the oldest within the United Kingdom, and evolution, typically speaking, is always beneficial to any region that it is um, represented within.
Mhm.
We always find that evolution is very beneficial to local areas when you can allow local political decisions to be made at the local level. As you may know, the English Devolutions and Empowerment Bill passed not too long back, and there are other similar bills which are currently in the process of being debated. So across the UK, we will start to see various areas get their own evolved settlements.
Yeah, yeah. No, absolutely. So, of course, that
I will give my 2 cents here. Devolution is good for every area of the UK. Decentralization will be the way forwards. But for Cornwall specifically, a recognition of our nation status with these devolved powers will help this nation. It will give us better services for the people of Cornwall and improve everyday lives.
Mhm, mhm, absolutely.
Correct.
If I could interject here, I'd just got a couple of messages about the stream sounding a bit quiet. I have went out my way to attempt to rectify that problem. If the problem persists, if someone could let me know. So, yeah, no, that's absolutely fine. Um, so what exactly are your aspirations for Cornwall? I know that what you might agree with might not be what people maybe at the top maybe on Kernow might agree with. Maybe you share the exact same politics, but what are your aspirations? For instance, do you see Cornwall having devolution rights within the next 5 years? Do you see it being an independent country one day, etc.?
Well, the aspirations for Cornwall would be better infrastructure for like the health service, our schools, hospitals, a better transport service as well. Because currently, if I wanted to go a town over, even though I live next to a town, I'd have to leave Cornwall just to go back into Cornwall. So with devolution, we could get better infrastructure in transport, more devolved powers would mean better services.
Yeah.
In terms of devolution, I can see us having nationhood, like recognized nationhood and those powers like a Senate, the next 5 years. Um, Joe, do you want to add to anything you want to say
Yeah.
to
So maybe Kernow has historically campaigned for a Senate, a Cornish Parliament, if you will. Historically, Cornwall has had its own Parliament, and it has even as recently as or as far back as, dependent on how you want to see it, it is still modern history. In 1889, Lord Salisbury, Prime Minister at the time, said it would be an unconstitutional injustice if Cornwall did not have a parliament,
Mhm.
and yet Scotland and Ireland were granted one.
Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah, that sounds fair enough. Like we were only given our parliament back in I think 1999 or something. That's when Holyrood was built. I think it's the same for the Senate in Wales. So we have had devolution rights for a little while at this point. But I totally get the the what Lord Salisbury was saying with that is, if there is a cultural identity of the Cornish and enough people support it, then why shouldn't it have its own parliament? Why shouldn't it make its own rules?
Exactly.
certainly.
Mm. And speaking of that, like I know that with Scotland and Wales support for independence kind of comes and goes, but what's the Cornish population like for devolution and independence? Does a majority support it? Does a majority side with Westminster?
Well, I would say that similar. There is a coming and going. This culminated in the last couple uh, centuries, and it, of course, with the founding of Maybe and Kernow, um, being the first political party of Cornwall, 75 years ago almost.
Hmm.
We will have our 75th anniversary uh, on next January,
Hmm.
and also we will be looking at the fact that, typically speaking, there has been a good level of support for decentralisation
Hmm.
in Cornwall. We have had the Cornwall there was a petition for a National Assembly which reached 50,000 signatures, a tenth of all the electorate
Yes.
in 2000, 2001. We've more recently, this last year, had a petition to recognise Cornwall's nationhood, which got over 24,000 signatures. That was only in a span of a month. And typically speaking, there has always been a high drive, especially in certain areas of Cornwall, for decentralisation, whereas a more bureaucratic nightmare like the proposed Devon Wall has been, and more centralisation has been heavily frowned upon.
Yeah, yeah. No, I get that. So it's sometimes getting support for your nation's devolution or even independence, it can be hard because like if I think back to the independence referendum in Scotland, what kept a lot of people in the UK Union as a whole is like we would be kicked out of the EU, and lo and behold, dragged out of it 2 years later anyway. If again, if you've seen the results of that, so certain things can be very very convincing, but if enough of the population want it and believe in it, certainly it could happen. And um, coming back to yourself, Ellie, so it's been a couple of months since you've been on the show. I do know that the last time that you were on, you did talk about a conference for and I'm probably going to butcher the name of the party again. I do apologise. It may be on care now. Can you talk about the events that happened at the conference?
Yes, so at that conference, the party did pass some motions. We had some long discussions. We were at Consul Kerno for this. The sort of motions we passed was the end of private ownership of water. Maybe Kerno is going to be campaigning to end the private ownership of sewage management, water networks, and we want to set up a non-profit body in Cornwall that will be held accountable to Cornwall's elected representatives to manage the water, sewage, and things like that. We have also passed a motion to establish a Cornish Sovereign Minerals and Wealth Fund. We'll be campaigning for that. So we make sure we have our fair share of the profits from Cornwall's natural resources,
Yeah.
like lithium, wind power, tin. Make sure it's kept in Cornwall and not overseas.
Yeah, Cornwall's always and I believe it was maybe during the Bronze Age that Cornwall and at least southern Wales did supply like quite a lot of Europe with tin for bronze. When it comes to Cornwall, it is, at least when it comes to tin and maybe lithium reserves, it has always been like a resource rich area. At
It
least
did,
at
said.
least of Britain.
Yes, and more recently they've published a couple of maps, and simply to view all the resources, so to speak, within Cornwall, they had to zoom into the area of of Cornwall, to show all the resource pockets because it is that rich as compared to other areas of the United Kingdom.
Yeah, no, absolutely.
As for what Ellie was saying regarding the water and sewage, we just very recently there was a protest by surfers against sewage because there were a number of spills around the Falmouth area. We had one of our councillors attended and attempted to talk to local media about the situation.
Yeah. Um, when you contacted local media about it, what exactly did they publish? Did they publish the story? Did they refuse to?
The story was, of course, published. Sadly, the interview with our councillor was cut, but at the very least, it was published that there was a spill so that people were aware.
Yeah, that's fair enough. That's fair enough. I'm just gonna turn to Joe for the next couple of minutes, just to ask you some questions in particular. So what initially got you into politics?
Well, simply put, I became a great uncle, and that changed my perspective on a lot. Wondering, wondering about what kind of world, what kind of immediate area my family, my young family, and youngsters like him would be raised in.
Mhm.
I've seen a lot of change, and not much of it is good in, I don't know.
Okay. All right. Uh, and so would you say in that case that Cornish devolution or Cornish or even Cornish independence does influence your political decisions? It influences, how you act maybe on the political spectrum as well.
Oh, it certainly does. It certainly does indeed. Um, of course, maybe in Kerno was, the go-to. It was, there's no other choice really
Mhm.
for Cornwall, in my opinion. Campaigning for, the local powers for local people at a grassroots level is certainly, what I consider to be
Mhm.
the best option.
Yeah. Uh, yeah, that's fair enough. Speaking of running in particular things, you very recently ran in a councillorship election, or it was at least for like a co-councillor. Um, uh, I did hear the
Yes,
results,
a
but
co-option.
yeah, I did hear about the results of it. But if you want to go into a little bit of detail just for the viewers at home.
Yes, I stood for a co-option of my local town council.
Mhm.
Um, Sadly, I did not get co-opted. However, it did come very close. I believe it came to a tie, in fact, and it took a wee bit of debate or until a candidate was selected. Um, I spoke to the candidate that was selected both before and afterwards. Seemed like a very nice chap, very interested in Cornish culture.
Mhm.
So hopefully, we'll do the best for the community.
No, absolutely, absolutely. You did state that unfortunately you were not elected. So are you disappointed with that result? Do you think you'll run again?
I am aware there is the possibility that there might be another either election or co-option shortly, and I was asked by a couple of people on the night and afterwards if I would consider. My answer, simply put, was yes, definitely. Um, I would always be willing to represent my local community in whatever capacity I could.
Yeah, great, great. Um, it's good that the decision of that election hasn't totally dissuaded you from running again. I know a lot of people that probably would be dissuaded. I didn't get elected the first time. Just won't try again. But because not getting chosen can affect your resolve. But if you want to run again, I say that's a good thing because it shows some kind of level of belief in yourself that you could get elected. So that's great. Um, if and well, if and when you get elected, what kind of policy will you push to be introduced in Cornwall?
Well, I would want to focus on local economic um, and environmental factors,
Hmm.
um, largely environmental. Um, there are a number of green spaces in the areas in which I live, which are largely maintained by volunteer forces. So I would want to make available more funding for those groups, more official funding, as well as encourage especially younger people to get involved with such groups to keep our green areas nice, to keep our green areas green
Hmm.
and natural, as well as, of course, championing um, the idea of further devolution, not only at the national level, of Querno, but also at the town level, the ability for towns to make their own local decisions to affect local township.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely great. I do know that preserving nature is always a good thing. Especially you know with the UK's green policy lately. It's just kind of been pushing for like obviously the turn to electric vehicles, pushing for more
Mm.
sustainable forms of electricity. But one of the greatest ways that we can do this is certainly by preserving nature and of course upgrading concurrent infrastructure as well. To again help the local populations in Cornwall, because if you have to go outside of Cornwall to then get back inside of Cornwall, it sounds a bit ridiculous to
Yeah,
be honestly. That is a bit ridiculous. So if you are to pass some of these policies again, if and when you're elected, how do you think that's going to affect Cornwall's working relationship with the United Kingdom's Parliament or its government?
I would hope that moving forward, um, things continue to improve um, with the United Kingdom as a whole, with Cornwall's relationship with Westminster, with its relationship with Cymru, with its relationship with Scotland, and so on.
Hmm.
But it's a bit of an unknown.
Yeah,
I would, these are thinking years ahead. So, but things do definitely seem on the up and up.
yeah, no, absolutely. When you go to drive or at least push for something like devolution for independence, it does take years to kind of negotiate these things. Sometimes it can take decades, or even in Scotland's case, centuries. We don't have our independence yet. We do have devolution, but we don't have our independence quite yet.
Yeah,
Hopefully that does happen, and sometime in the possible near future. However, if Cornwall does get devolution, I know that it's going to be welcomed by all the other constituent nations. Maybe England might be a little bit salty, but I do know that Scotland, Wales, and the Northern Ireland would absolutely love to have another nation on the front. Um, well, that seems to be all the questions that I have for yourself at the moment, Joe. I'm going to turn to Ellie now, and
um,
you mentioned last time about the the youth movement of maybe on Cairnrow. How exactly does that operate? Does it operate in the exact same way as the regular party, or is there like another kind of way that it goes about doing things?
Well, youth wings for maybe in Kerno, it's called Kerno Wreath. It's an autonomous branch of maybe in Kerno. It's basically like any other party, like the Plaid Cymru's youth wing, the
Hmm.
SNPs. We can make our own choices. We can make our own motions, our own stances. If you are within the age range for the youth wing, and if you join maybe in Kerno, you're automatically a member of Kerno Wreath.
Hmm. That's great. That's great. Would that apply for anyone like up to a certain age? Like 17 and under or 18 and under?
I think it's 18 and above.
18 and above. Okay, all right, that's fine. That's fine. What's your part in that organisation? What is it? Sorry, maybe on Wreath, was it?
No, Kerno Wreath.
Colonel Wreath. Sorry, Colonel Wreath. What's your part in Colonel Wreath?
So I do social media. I've made thumbnails, posts, and I'm trying to bring more feminist action into the party. Maybe Kerno was one of the first parties in the UK to have a female leader. Um, we want it to be more celebrated. There's a load of feminist action already, but I feel we should do more.
Mm. Absolutely. Women in politics, I feel, are just as important as men. Women do have a different way of thinking, and it does greatly benefit politics. Obviously, all the all the women and that we might know in our lives as well. When if we look at our male role models and our female role models, they're definitely two different sets of people. Especially in their ideas and the way that they think, the way that they operate. So it's
Yeah.
it's great that you want to push for more feminist action within it. And when it comes to Kieran Ruth, do you have a goal to maybe be elected as leader of that movement?
There is a few leadership positions, and I would like to be within one of those one day.
Mhm. That's great. Uh, if if you are to be elected leader, or at least maybe on the council of leaders of or something, I'm not entirely sure how the party works, but the leader or council of leaders or whatever. Um, what would you push to introduce?
I would push for a female branch of Cornish. Um, I would also push for more trans-focused policies. The party is very pro-trans, but I feel more definitive policies would help the party.
Yeah, yeah, no, absolutely.
Um, I would also like to make sure the party has a bigger social media presence because we have one already, but I believe we need a bigger one to connect with the people, more Gen Z voters.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. Gen Z is obviously the way forward. One day it's going to be us sitting in the Houses of Parliament. Maybe not the three of us specifically, but at least some of our peers. They'll be sitting in the Houses of Parliament one day making the policies and running the country. I do know that there are a couple of Gen Z MPs already up and down the UK. So absolutely. And with that as well, one last thing, and I do think it's rather big for Cornwall as a whole, is that Cornish was actually moved from a level 2 language up to a level 3 language, at least in part of recognition, gaining the same amount of recognition as all the other Celtic languages round about the United Kingdom. How do you guys feel about that?
Well, it's fantastic, really, for our recognition, both inside and outside of Erno. Um, Not only does it do a lot for the recognition of us as a people, us as a nation, and our language, but it's also very beneficial. It is in before, there was the need to acknowledge the language, but not much more. Now, with the level 3, there is very much the possibility that there will be a need for the UK government to promote the language both inside and outside Renault, and to increase its the ability for individuals to access it in schools and other education centres.
Yeah, no, absolutely. When something like this happens, and it's not very often that the UK concedes anything to maybe the other regions, especially regions or parts of itself. When it does give us something like that, it definitely gives people a right to then learn the language for it to be in schools curriculum. I'm not sure if it already was in a lot of Cornwall's school curriculums, but it would be beneficial for more people uh, to learn the language. Obviously reconnect with the culture as well. I think we were talking earlier, and you said that there were what like 500 speakers of Cornish that were fluent left, and maybe a couple of thousand that can have an actual conversation. I mean, in the grand scheme of the population of Cornwall, that's not a lot. It's not a great deal, but hopefully, what I would hope at least for the other regions of the UK as well, that the native language to that part is taught again.
Yes, it's not a. It doesn't seem a lot, although it's also worth noting we don't have a proper catalogue of this information.
Mhm.
It hasn't been deemed important enough to catalogue it,
Yeah.
sadly. Much like how Cornish is not available on the census, for example.
Mhm. Yeah, it's a bit sad. But again, with the promotion of the level, um, it goes somewhere, and more people within time actually do get to learn Cornish. I don't think I've ever actually heard Cornish being spoken, but I do know it sounds very, very similar. I think it sounds similar to maybe Breton and or even Manx, Breton in the north of France and Brittany, or even Manx, so, on that wee island between Britain and Britain and Ireland. Um, well,
It would be closer to Welsh than Manx,
Welsh, okay, okay, that's interesting.
because Cornish, Welsh, and Breton, they're Brythonic languages,
Yeah, yeah.
while
Yes, they are
Manx, Scots
Brittonic
Gaelic,
languages.
and Irish is Gaelic.
Oh, right, okay. I didn't know that Manx was a Gaelic language. I thought that was Brythonic. Well, you learn something new every day. Every day's a school day. Well, with that, we move on to live audience question time. If anyone is out there watching and wishes to ask my two guests if, some questions, you can post them in the chat now, and we'll answer them within time. Just between that that wait for questions to come in and now, do you guys have any questions for me?
I
I
can't think of
can't
any
say I
questions.
do
There
off
is
the
something
top of my
we
head
should
now.
raise. An important note for the party, we are seeking to contest all 6 seats in the next general election.
Oh, that's great. That's absolutely great. Hopefully Cornwall does, or maybe on Cairnrow does get those 6 seats, because if it gets 6 seats, that's basically the whole region saying, we want to be heard.
Well, definitely, yes.
Absolutely, absolutely. Just gonna wait a few more moments for any live questions to come in. So what are you guys gonna do with the rest of your Sunday in that case? I'll just make idle chit chat waiting for what you guys are gonna do with the rest of your Sunday.
I
Well,
um I'll be working on some thumbnails for the party.
Excellent, excellent. And
yes, we all have a little bit of social media work to do for the rest of the day, and hopefully we'll be getting on top of things after that. As far as the social media work goes, we're in the process of modernisation. As far as that goes,
yeah, great, great. It's always good when you get some kind of um proper social media presence. It allows more people, obviously, to see the party. Everyone's on their phones these days, or on the internet, or
Mhm.
this, that, and the next thing, and coming across these things, even if you've never heard of them before, it's a simple case of uh like someone only has to look at these things, and you think, oh, I want to be a part of that, I want to do that. And it's kind of how I found micronations was, I was constantly on my phone back then. I'm a little bit better with it now, but I was constantly on my phone, and just like, come across Kevin Ball and stuff like that. So
Mhm.
obviously getting into that and founding
I
New
believe some
Strathclyde.
questions have been asked.
Yes, I do see those at the moment, and so I've got Poppy Punk X3 who asks, does maybe on Care Now have any plans to encourage Gen Z members?
I believe I'd be best to answer this. We are taking a bit more of a shift towards Gen Z people at the minute with our social media modernisation. And with Colonel Reith, we want to get more people into the party and taking more actions for Cornwall. So we will be doing more for the Gen Z people of Cornwall.
certainly.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, that sounds great. Next question is Balls9420 asks, can Cornwall be saved? Its transportation and economy are totally, and I'm going to use a less vulgar word here, are totally screwed.
Well, yes, it is very true that transportation, for example, are quite badly damaged. And as for the economy, that is too. But it's worth noting that farming, for example, is, I believe, a fifth of our economy.
Mm.
Um, the tourism industry, which most people like to point to, is much less than most would think. And it's an awful lot of our funding, what we can spend our own funding on, is decided in, I believe it is Bristol. So, which, you know, how that makes any sense at all.
Mhm.
So this is why devolution is the choice, because if you're waiting for decisions from Exeter and from Bristol
Mm.
about where you're meant to spend your funding, obviously issues such as forced housing quotas and what you need to spend money on where, they aren't going to make too much sense for your local area.
Absolutely, absolutely. Well, I hope that answers your question. Well, Balls9420 asks another question: can people get on bicycles like in the Netherlands? Do you think that's something that Cornwall would fund, at least in the larger towns and cities, that would fund,
Well,
bikes for
yeah,
for people?
I have recently seen at least one bike lane put in around the Camborne and Red Roof area. I know there are other areas that have similar plans. We would have to see what those areas ultimately do. But
Mm.
I would hope that um, to ease the congestion that comes around every summer, that more people do consider cycling.
Yeah, cycling's a good way to get out. My mum isn't really a big exercise nut, but she loves to cycle, and she started cycling maybe like 9 months ago. She goes out with my stepdad. They go cycling. My mum's a lot happier. She gets her out the house. She's lost a bit of weight as well, which is always good. If people are maintaining a healthy
Yeah,
lifestyle. So I should probably get a bike myself because I love to cycle, but I've not cycled in a very long time. Um, I hope that answers your question again. And the next question is from Boba Bear 6291. Would Ellie run for council?
Yes, I want to run for my town council and eventually one day run for Consul Kerno.
Hmm, excellent.
good job.
I hope that answers your question, Boba Bear. The next question again comes from Balls9420. How do we partition Cornwall up once Cornwall gets a parliament?
That would be for the people of Cornwall to decide at that time. There has been a number of books written on the matter, um, which I believe are freely available on such things as the Maybe and Kerno website. However, ultimately, until we are at that point, we cannot say what the people want until they have voted for it.
Mm, no, absolutely, absolutely. First you've got to get devolution or independence, and then like,
Absolutely.
and then decide how is this county going to, or the country at that point, how's that going to be split up? How are we going to make sure that elections are fair, so that you know every kind of part of this gets an equal say. It's fair enough as leaving it to the people to decide at the time. I hope that answers your question. The next question comes from Puppy Punk X3, assuming Cornish independence is achieved. How would maybe on Cairnrow run government approach social issues such as gay rights and workplace discrimination?
Maybe and Kerno has always been a more progressive uh, party. Yes, we are a Cornish nationalist party. However, most people think of nationalism as a very nasty right wing thing. We are civic nationalists. That means we believe that the civilians of Kerno are should be looked after by Kerno, regardless of who they are. Um, Maybe in Kerno was founded by, as Ellie said earlier, a woman, and he was originally, in fact, from India, but
Mm,
came over here, loved the language, loved the culture, and felt it was under vicious attack.
absolutely.
And we have always remembered that. We
Mm.
have always strived to work with other people in that way and maintain that progressivism because other people did that for us.
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. And the final question that's come up here is again from Balls9420, and they ask, how do you think we get more people into Cornish politics?
Honestly, the best thing to do, and something which is relatively easy given the time in which we live, is simply to talk about it.
Hmm.
A lot of people are talking about the political landscape now, especially with a lot of the newer parties that are being formed. And that, while it can be a negative thing, it can also be a positive thing. And it can be used to get people talking about how they can do things in a positive way.
Mm.
And hopefully that will get people positively engaged.
Yeah, no, absolutely. You know, always engaging and getting and getting people to talk about it. You know, at the very least, you know, it does allow people to be to be more aware of it. You know, before the internet, how did businesses you know, get more customers? Word of mouth. People talked about it, and again, you know, that sounds like a particularly good way
Definitely.
to, you know. Um, I thought we would finish with the questions, but there's been a couple more. Uh, LGBT Alliance asks, how are second homes affecting housing in Cornwall?
Killing
Atrociously.
communities. It's awful.
Over, yeah,
It's like ghost towns here, like when you're in the summer, it's bustling, there's loads of life, but as soon as that summer wave stops, it's literally like a ghost town.
Mm. Yeah, it's
over,
seasonal.
yeah, over 60% on a whole are second homes, and that's unsustainable.
Yeah.
Um, as you can imagine, it means some places are completely deserted when the winter rolls around. The
Hmm.
economies can't survive. Other places still suffer considerably,
Yeah.
and then there's no money to go back into the local infrastructure to improve these facilities when people come to visit for their holidays next year
Yeah.
or
Yeah.
other things.
Mhm. No, absolutely. You know, when I go back to the places that I visited as a boy, you know, and this was like 20 years ago. I'm not quite an old man, but I'm getting there. Um, you know, I do see towns and shops almost derelict because of you know, like the seasonal stuff. Of course, when you I would say internally a popular destination such as Cornwall. You know, I would imagine it's much the same way. Everything bustles during the summer, and by the winter it's dead again. I feel like that's a normal part of seasonal business, but it's still not good for like the, you know, the local towns, because if everyone's pouring money in the summer and the winter, you've got nothing. You know, it's kind of it's not a very good business model. This is what I'm trying to say. But um, moving on, LGBT Alliance asks again. Also, are maybe on Care Now interested in hosting community events to attract Gen Z supporters?
We are
Maybe
going to an event down the way next year. It is going to have um, people from Kerner Reith promoting the Cornish language. I believe Joe knows more about this than I do.
Yes, maybe Inferno does sometimes host events.
Mm-hmm.
It also hosts stalls at public events. Um, so where people can simply come for a chat or to sign up onto the party. Um, I believe Glowen Festival next year, maybe Inferno might be holding a stall, and it's also been discussed that some members of the youth group would headlong to a local Cornish stall to help teach some people the Cornish language.
Yeah, that's great. Well, I hope that answers your your question, LGBT Alliance. The next question comes again from Balls9420. How do you feel about the changes in the Cornish language between standard written form and unified Cornish?
Well, that's an interesting question. Maybe Inkerno officially backs the standard written form, as do most groups within Cornwall.
Yeah, that's great. I hope that answers your question. The next question again comes from LGBT Alliance. What's maybe on Kierna's stance on pushing for more disability-friendly infrastructure in Cornwall? I'm not sure if Cornwall lacks a lot of disability-friendly infrastructure, although I would imagine it probably does based on that question.
We do. As
We
someone who
do
is
have issues.
disabled, it's hard to get around here.
Yes. I'm disabled. I know Ellie is. I know a number of other people, both inside who support the party, are disabled. It can be difficult to get around at times.
Mhm.
And even when there are facilities, they aren't properly maintained all the time. So we are supportive of course, those with disabilities, both physical and mental.
Yeah, no, that's it is a bit bad if as the population grows, right, obviously you get more and more people with physical disabilities. It's going to happen. It's what happens when any population expands. And if Cornwall doesn't even have the funding for these um what's the word I'm looking for, infrastructure
Well,
changes,
as
then
I
it's a bit bad. So hopefully at some point, Cornwall does get the money to invest in some kind of infrastructure to help guys, people like yourself get around. Um,
sadly, a lot of our funding leaves us for Exeter and Bristol, so
mhm. Yeah, that's good.
it's what they say we can have back.
Yeah, yeah, that's not not particularly good if it is going to Exeter and Bristol. I don't know why the money would filter through those cities before anything went to yourself, but if that is happening, then that is bad. Um,
Bristol is an administrative capital for the southwest.
mhm.
That is its unofficial title. So it
uh, Actually, I didn't know that myself. I did not know that. The
most yeah, it
sorry,
causes a lot of local issues, as you can imagine.
yeah, I would imagine it does. If you get all your funding decided by somewhere very far away. I could see how that might pose some problem. The next question comes from again Balls9420. What do you think will happen for Cornwall in the next 10 years?
I believe we
Oh,
will get our nation recognised. I believe we'll also get our Senate. Um, I believe we are going in a positive direction. We've definitely been in a position of the best position we've been in so far to get our rights back. Joe, do you want to add on?
well, yes. I know there has been at least three smaller political groups in Wales that have recognised Cornwall as a nation now. As has Brittany, I believe, is hosting Cornwall next year
Mhm.
at their festival because it is the nation of honour. In fact,
Oh, that's great.
Brittany is recognising Cornwall as its rightful status. So nationhood status is slowly getting more and more recognised by more and more places. So I would hope that that momentum picks up with each year.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's great if Cornwall's the nation of what was the title again? Nation of Honor.
Yes, Nation of Honor.
Nation of Honor. That's absolutely great. You know, if Cornwall's got that, at least when heading to Brittany next year. Well, I hope that answers your question. Next, I thought this was a little bit of a devilish question. Obviously I know your stance on this, but LGBT Alliance asks, does Joe and Ellie support Devon Wall?
Oh, yes. Absolutely not. We're glad we're rid of it.
I would rather jump into a septic tank with rusty nails.
Fair enough. Fair enough. Well, I hope that answers your question. LGBT Alliance does have another question. And do you think, well, would an independent Cornwall have the Isle of Scilly?
I think it'd be up to the people of the Isles of Scilly to choose if they would be with us or not, because they do have their own devolution, their own council down there.
Mhm.
It just depends if they'd want to or not.
Fair enough. Fair enough.
Yes. Chile faces many of the same issues as Cornwall, so it would ultimately be there a decision made at that time,
Yeah,
and
absolutely.
taking those issues into consideration.
Mm, Fair enough. The final question comes from Kernel Archives, and I believe you answered the question very similar to this earlier. However, does maybe on Kernel support the intersex community?
100%. Recently, Loveday Jenkins, she was in a council meeting. She was speaking up for the intersex community.
Mm, yeah, that's great. That's
Yes.
absolutely great. Well, I do not believe there are any more live questions at this time. So we'll just we'll finish it off there. Ellie, Joe, thanks so much for coming on onto the show.
Whereas for having me again.
Yeah, that's absolutely
Brass.
fine. Yep, and it's been great to have you as well, Joe. What you can do so for those of you at home, again you can like subscribe, you can do whatever you like. Obviously you can follow the X channel as well at NS Valley Radio. You know if you want live updates from there. I don't post an awful lot, but you know hopefully as I get a bit more popular, I do. However, the next episode or the next video that's going to air because I'm stopping for over Christmas and New Year. The next one is airing on the 25th of January, which is Burns Night here in Scotland. So that'll be the Boulder Dash campaign, episode 4. You can come and watch, and Ethan of the Sonland will be back on hopefully, and so will Connor of Libertalia, so tune in at that particular time for that. Well, thanks very much everyone for tuning in at home. Thanks very much for all your lovely comments and the live chat today. And again, thanks to Ellie and Joe for being here. Thank you very much.